Fascism is everywhere in liberal capitalist countries. And they are going to do the exact same thing that Donald Trump is doing right now when they have a little bit of the grip of power. Okay? When they control the levers of power, they are going to turn around and they're going to suppress dissent. They're going to violently and physically apprehend you. The only way out of this, the only other alternative out of this is socialism. I've been warning about this moment in American history for the past decade, every single fucking day. Every single day. Let's get to Donald Trump. He's making a presidential memorandum. Let's see what new fresh hell unfolds for us now in the United States of America.
First of all, thank you. Thank you. We are very hopeful and excited about the prospect of moving that city forward. I've been in office 7 years.
He's sending the National Guard to Memphis?
The great city of Memphis back. And I have spoken today with the director of the U.S. Marshals, with the director of the FBI, with General Bondi. We realize that this effort of multi-agencies that will combine the work of the Tennessee Highway Patrol and the local police departments, when we come together, we can make significant change in our city, in the city of Memphis, and that is a powerfully important thing for the state of Tennessee, and I want to say thank you.
This will be your proudest moment when we see you in 4 or 5 weeks, maybe sooner. You're going to see numbers that will drop and plummet like you haven't. Just like we did in D.C., they plummeted. Nobody could even believe it. And they're going to plummet. It'll be one of your really proud moments, and you've done a good job, too. But this will be maybe your proudest moment.
Thank you, sir.
Okay?
And the director, as the director said, the goal is sustained.
Right. Got to keep it.
Sustained crime lowering, and that with this effort, I believe we can get there. We can finally get there for that city.
Yep, we're going to have it sustained a long time. And your people are going to get better and better, and your police force has been terrific. They're working with us very much, as you know. Started it, as I said, on a little basis, and we got it down quite a bit, but now we go in for the big march, okay?
And Director Patel and his team have done remarkable work so far. As you know, the numbers are great, and this will be one more step in the right direction for Memphis.
That's true.
Thank you.
He's done a very good job. Thank you very much. Pam, please.
Oh, well, why doesn't he actually send it to, why doesn't he send the National Guard to red states where there's a lot of crime? Was stupid.
Mr. President, Memphis
Okay?
has a high number
Because here is a red state where there's a lot of crime,
of human traffickers, child exploitation.
and it's, once again, another black city.
They're extremely dangerous.
Okay?
And I'm so excited that you're going in there to work with not just the governor and willing local leaders, but also our attorney general and all the leaders that are standing here today to help protect our children. So what's going to change dramatically is the families' lives that live there, and it's only going to happen because of you, because you're coming in. What has started there, you're going to put on steroids. The networks that you're going to uncover across this country, because of the work that's going to happen in Memphis, we're going to see every city get safer because we're going to see those ties to other criminals that we're going to get out of the country. So we're a nation of laws. And sir, thank you for caring about every single city.
Thank you, Christy. Really nice. And what makes it to me so exciting is the success we had here so quickly. And, you know, we've taken close to 1,500 people out of D.C., but when I saw the result happen so quickly, and so many people are so thankful, and people that you pass them every day and they're fine, all of a sudden they're thanking me so profusely. It was so exciting what's happened, and continues to be what happened in D.C., and so that's what makes this, I think, even more exciting, because we know what's going to happen. We know we have the people. Look, we're sending in a lot of help. These cities have been taken over for years, and the last 4 years under Biden, what's happened is just a disgrace. So it really has, what the success we've had here has made it to me much more exciting, because I think we're going to have proportionally. I mean, you have cases where it's even worse. I have some. It's so exciting, and somebody had to do this. A president should have stepped up long ago and saved these cities. So it's not that I wanted to do it, believe me. Somebody had to do it, and we're doing it in a big way.
This is not a long-term commitment to safety at all. The presence of military on American streets is not only unconstitutional, but is not even a bandage. It is not even a Band-Aid to a fucking gaping wound. We know that crime is a byproduct of material conditions. We know crime is born out of poverty. Okay? If you want to tackle crime consistently, if you want to make sure that you erase crime to the best of your ability, most of the crime that we look at, that we see as the most visible aspects of crime, is often either directly just a visible form of poverty, whether it be homeless people on the streets, or the locking of like deodorant at fucking CVS and whatnot. And the only long-term solution to that is to improve people's material conditions, to make sure that they're not living in abject poverty.
President Trump put together a team that saw the largest ever violent crime reduction in any city in American history. Something that people had not been able to do in 40 years. That is a momentous achievement. And now the president is going to take that same model to Memphis, and as he said, more cities after that. The team that the president has put together has no equal today or anywhere in American history. I think what's happening here is that what the president has done is made clear. The power of federal law enforcement that was used for the last 4 years to harass and attack conservatives, to harass and attack Christians, to go after law-abiding families. The power of law enforcement under President Trump is going to be used to get all the criminals, all the violent offenders, all the murderers, all the cartels, and all the domestic terrorists off our streets. So whether you're Antifa, whether you're a domestic terrorist, whether you are a violent gang member, a drug trafficker, a trained Irawagwa killer, or anyone else that's threatening our people, President Trump is saying he's going to use his FBI, his DOD, his ATF, his DEA to wipe you out, to put you in behind bars, to take you off the street, or to apply whatever legal consequences necessary. Mr. President, I'm honored beyond words to be a part of this team under your leadership as you've saved thousands of lives.
Thank you very much. Come on over. Let's sign that. So, you want to say anything about our great military real fast? He's won a job. He's doing this guy.
Mr. President, so our Army National Guard is honored to be part of this mission. This is their community. A lot of them are from D.C. They're from Tennessee. When you talk to them, when you talk to the actual population out there who interact with them every day, they say it's a blessing to have them as a part of their life. And then for the National Guard getting to have this where they get to improve their communities, where their kids are growing up and they're going to church, and this is where their families are. Many of them, sir, have said this is the honor of their lifetime, so thank you.
Look at that nice face, and yet he's a killer. Nice, beautiful face. And he's a total killer. I don't know how you do it. Huh?
Lotion, sir.
Everybody here. All right, here we go. Okay.
Wonderful.
Mention a presidential memorandum to send the National Guard to Memphis, Tennessee.
The next day, and they had a lot of. That was not so easy. They had, that's a violent, radical left group. Okay, go ahead.
I've heard a lot of comments for doing that. They still have their First Amendment right, though. They're still
Yeah, well, I'm not.
You've got an amazing team behind you. You've done an awesome job for D.C.
Thank
I
you.
want to get ahead of a story that I think might come out. You pushed out an email earlier today, really showing dozens and dozens of local media in Memphis highlighting all of the violent crime in that city. So they have no problem reporting the crime, but when you show up to solve it, they're going to run around town looking for that one person that says, we don't want Donald Trump in our city. What can you say to the media there in Memphis, Tennessee, to help let them know the people want you there in their city?
Well, I'm not sure they found that person, because I saw them doing some interviews, and it looked like they were looking, but they were very, in fact, that producer and that person, I think they lost their jobs, because everybody was saying, we want Trump to be there, they want the people right here to be there. Look, it's very simple. In Chicago, they're getting beat to hell, they're being shot. If you lose 6 or 7 people die over a weekend, they consider that a successful weekend. And when you consider that a successful weekend, that's pretty bad. I had the president of Poland here a few days ago, and we had a news conference. Many of you were here. And I made this statement. I said, we're very happy to announce that it's been over 2 weeks since anybody's been killed in D.C. And he looked at me like, is that supposed to be good? He's looking like, what kind of a place is this? And now it's been a long time, but and as I was saying it, I said, I'm not sure if that sounds good to somebody. It sounded great to you, but it doesn't sound good to somebody from a country where they don't have violent crime like we have. but now it's a long time since that's happened. We went for years where at least one person was killed. Now you're not seeing it all. It's like the border. Millions of people a year ago, millions of people poured into our country. In the last 3 months, there have been zero, as reported by largely Democrats, actually.
Given with all the that's going on with Charlie Kirk's assassination and the left wing, a lot of left wing violence going on, do you have plans? And actually, this is a great opportunity with all these people here. Do you plan on designating Antifa finally a domestic terror organization?
Well, it's something I would do, yeah. If I have support from the people back here, I think we'd start with Pam, I think. But I would, if you give me, I would do that 100%. And others also, by the way. But Antifa is terrible.
Are there other groups that you can think of?
There are other groups, yeah. There are other groups. We have some pretty radical groups, and they got away with murder. And also, I've been speaking to the Attorney General about bringing RICO against some of the people that you've been reading about that have been putting up millions and millions of dollars for agitation. These aren't protests. These are crimes, what they're doing, where they're throwing bricks at cars of ICE and Border Patrol. And they come in with a beautiful new car. They're so proud. It's Border Patrol, ICE, it's got whatever it is. And they're throwing rocks at it. And after 50 yards, it looks like an old beat-up vehicle. It was just brand new. It was just bought for the purposes, and they don't have to take that anymore. I let it be known. We'll take responsibility. They don't have to take it anymore, and they don't want to take it. They were told by a past administration. It became almost.
Apparently, J.D. Vance referenced Soros and Ford Foundation twice in his speech.
You do whatever the hell you want. I watched it so sick it made me. For 4 years, I had to sit home and watch people screaming at policemen and spitting in their face.
DSA and PSL are too small fry for them to even care about. They want to tackle like big organizations. I think they're like going after liberal groups as well. They're not just going after the left. They're not like going after leftist groups. Okay, they're going after. Glenn says they still have their First Amendment right, though. They're still out there protesting. Well, I'm not so sure. Yeah, it's very obvious that this administration does not give a fuck. I mean, everything that I told you was going to happen is literally happening. I told you that it wasn't going to stay with like undocumented or even documented non-citizens. I told you it was always going to extend to all political dissidents. And if you think it stops there, you are delusional. Eventually, this administration will decide that you're next. That's how it works. That's how fascism works. And I've been trying to actively get people on board. I'm trying to explain to people that it's not, the goal here is not just to clean up the most radical elements of the political left. Like, that's not the goal. That's never been the goal. The goal is to silence dissent. And not just silence dissent, but demand admiration from everyone, okay? You can see that with the way that they're operating right now with the Charlie Kirk stuff. Are there people who have said like crazy shit? Certainly, okay? But it doesn't stop there. They're not just going after people who have said crazy shit, which, again, you could just let it go regardless, right? And the administration shouldn't be touching that in any case, because that's still, once again, a violation of the First Amendment. But they're now moving away from that. They're moving away from just like yelling about people or demanding that they get fired. They want the administration to prosecute people who have not sufficiently demonstrated grief about Charlie Kirk. What do you think that means? It's fucking insane.
And New Orleans, we want to get to, too.
Your FBI is investigating the potential role of left-wing organizations in the assassination. I'm wondering if you think if Charlie Kirk...
At what point is it full fascism? We're 2 steps away from full fascism. Full fascism is due process is over and free speech is completely over. Once they tackle that, or rather redirect the courts to follow their vision, follow their agenda, you've crossed the last Rubicon. You've crossed you've crossed the finish line, basically. The comparison I would use is like the Nuremberg race laws, because at first they want to tackle the remaining institutions that are supposed to offer some kind of counterbalance to growing accelerated fascism. But then after they've sufficiently dismantled these institutions, they will rebuild it in their own vision. Okay?
American flag, go to jail based on freedom of speech, goes to jail immediately, but the freedom of speech protected them, right? And so, that's been argued a couple of times, and it's one of those things. But you know what hasn't been argued, and we're going to be arguing it, I think, very soon, and that's the violence. They incite violence. So when I saw it just yesterday, they burned the American flag, and people that were there were fine, and all of a sudden they're going crazy, and there's fist fights. It wasn't in Memphis either, but I will say it incites violence. And, a new thing that I've been seeing a lot of lately, but never saw it before, is they're walking in with bricks and rocks and everything, and the FBI or the Border Patrol or ICE or the police are grabbing them and taking them away, and that's great. And then they whip out a hammer. And it's a beautiful hammer, really. It's nice. This is not a hammer somebody happens to have. These are serious hammers, beautiful, brand new hammers. And they start breaking up the concrete sidewalks and the granite curbs in many cases. Granite is hard to cut, it's very hard stone.
Beautiful hammers.
And they're banging away and handing out pieces of stone. So instead of having it in bags, they're banging the sidewalk, knocking them. You have to see what some of these sidewalks look like when they finish, and especially the curbs, because the granite curbs are very, very expensive, and they're great, and very hard. They are almost indestructible, but not when it gets pounded on for 20 minutes by some pretty strong guy. And then they hand out big chunks of stone so that people can throw them at the police, and people can drop them off bridges into car windows. No, we have a long way to go, and we're going to make it all good. We're going to make it really safe. This country is going to be safe. We've got almost 3.5 years. Think of that, 3.5 years. It's a long time. It goes quickly. But at the end of that time, I hope one of the many things we can say is that we made our cities safe again. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you TV, we're done. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Here is one of the highlights from this incredible press conference.
That's a violent radical left group. Okay, go ahead.
I got peppered with a lot of comments for doing that. They still have their First Amendment right, though. They're still out there protesting. You've got an amazing team behind you.
So, yeah, well, I'm not so sure if they have a First Amendment right. Like, at what point will people realize, like, this motherfucker is coming after everybody, okay? He's coming after everybody. Anyone that is a dissident at any point, he's going to come after. He wants to open up RICO cases to NGOs. We're going to talk about that a little bit further. It's over. The project is done, okay? White House plans broad crackdown on liberal groups. Some of the highest-ranking officials in federal government used Charlie Kirk's podcast, guest hosted by Vice President J.D. Vance, to lay out their plans. Trump administration officials on Monday responded to the activist Charlie Kirk's assassination by threatening to bring the weight of the federal government down on what they alleged was a left-wing network that funds and incites violence, seizing on the killing to make broad and unsubstantiated claims about their political opponents. Investigators were still working to identify a motive in Mr. Kirk's killing, but the Republican governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, has said that the suspect had a leftist ideology and that he acted alone. The White House and President Trump's allies suggested he was a part of a coordinated movement that was fomenting violence against conservatives without presenting evidence that such a network existed. America has seen a wave of violence across the political spectrum, targeting Democrats and Republicans. On Monday, two senior administration officials who spoke anonymously to describe their internal planning said that cabinet secretaries and federal department heads were working to identify organizations that funded or supported violence against conservatives. The goal, they say, was to categorize left-wing activity that led to violence as domestic terrorism, an escalation that critics said could lay the groundwork for crushing anti-conservative dissent more broadly. The reason why all of the very prominent, very visible right-wing content creators and right-wing accounts on Twitter have been actively saying, Hasan, you foment violence. Hasan, you foment violence. Hasan, you want violence to happen to conservatives. You want unlimited violence to happen to conservatives. You're a violent figure. The reason why they're doing that, the reason why they're escalating it, the reason why they're The reason why they get the knives out is for this, so they can get the attention of the most Twitter-facing administration of all time to play a role in trying to silence political opposition, to try and silence political dissent. NIJ-funded research projects have led to a better understanding of the processes that result in violent action, factors that increase the risk of radicalizing to violence, and how best to prevent and respond to violent extremism. Now, the reason why we're looking at this page that was on the National Institute of Justice government page on the Wayback Machine is because they deleted it. They deleted this study. The Department of Justice removed this study from their webpage. The reason why they removed the study from their webpage is because when they investigated further on what kind of dangerous radicalization was taking place, both online and on U.S. soil in general, that leads to the overwhelming majority of violent extremist actions, domestic terror on U.S. soil, they found out that it was more often than not right-wing. Okay? Militant, nationalistic, white supremacist, violent extremism has increased in the United States. In fact, the number of far-right attacks continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violent extremism. Since 1990, far-right extremists have committed far more ideologically motivated homicides than far-left or radical Islamist extremists, including 227 events that took more than 520 lives. In this same period, far-left extremists committed 42 ideologically motivated attacks that took 78 lives. A recent threat assessment by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security concluded that violent domestic extremists are an acute threat and highlighted a probability that COVID-19 pandemic-related stressors, long-standing ideological grievances related to immigration, and narratives surrounding electoral fraud will continue to serve as a justification for violent actions. Some of the highest-ranking officials in the federal government used Mr. Kirk's podcast, The Charlie Kirk Show, to lay out their plans. From his official office at the White House, Vice President J.D. Vance served as a guest host of the podcast, inviting senior members of the administration, including Stephen Miller, the president's top policy advisor, to praise Mr. Kirk while also detailing their plans to crack down on what they call leftist, non-governmental organizations. The show was broadcast on the television screens in the White House briefing room and in several West Wing offices. In their comments, Mr. Vance and Mr. Miller spoke in vague and menacing terms about far-left groups that they said facilitated violence.
We have to talk about this incredibly destructive movement of left-wing extremism that has grown up over the last few years, and I believe is part of the reason why Charlie was killed by an assassin's bullet. We're going to talk about how to dismantle that and how to bring real unity that can only come when we tell the truth and everybody knows that they can speak their mind about the issues of the day without being cut down by a murderer's gun.
Which is why what we are going to do is prosecute and arrest and maybe even deport all political dissidents, which is not, of course, a violent act at all.
In the last few days, for unity and for healing in the wake of Charlie's assassination, you have no idea how desperately I want that, how gratified I was when Democratic friends and even former Senate colleagues reached out to offer their condolences to me. I'm so thankful.
By the way, this was my opinion. Does the assassination of Charlie Kirk represent a significant turning point in American history, or is it just another incident in a series of politically violent acts? 48% say just another incident. This is what I tried to speak to with all of the different media hits that I did with the New York Times op-ed that I wrote, that Americans are so desensitized to violence that they look to yet another instance, even if it's a high-profile figure, even if it's a figure that was beloved by the right, and they go, okay, well, you know, it literally, a school shooting happened with a far-right neo-Nazi shooting up and critically injuring two of his classmates an hour after Charlie Kirk was shot. Like, they see it so much. Americans see it so much that it's not it's not something that they consider to be all too unique. Like I said, well, who Charlie Kirk was or how much of a beloved figure he was for at least like some of the powerful people within the MAGA movement, the expectation that Americans are going to be so desensitized to violence because of our overall inability to address the systemic reasons as to why this kind of ultra violence takes place with regular frequency, to then turn around and be like, well, this one is different. For many Americans, they're not going to see it as that. That's it. The reason why this is still significant, by the way. 40% saying that this is a significant turning point is definitely larger than the 30% that you would expect to say is a significant turning point. You know, the people that say, this was my radicalizing moment. And it's like a guy who has been a Nazi for the past decade. You know what I mean? It's like, no, bitch, this wasn't a radicalizing moment for you. You keep using every moment as a radicalizing moment. You say Cracker Barrel is a radicalizing moment. You say woke is a radicalizing moment every single time. Okay? But the reason why this is a dangerous number is because that means that there's at least 10% that were in the margins that have been that have fed into all of the both liberal media and right-wing media consistently pumping this up and saying that this is like this is a significant turning point for America. They are coming after white Christians or whatever. Like, people are subscribing to that notion. Here's Greg Gutfeld saying, we don't need more information. What's interesting here is why it's only happening on the left and not the right.
It wasn't school indoctrination. Kerry Lake went off on that. He was in an online apprenticeship program at Dixie Technical College, which I don't think was changed.
I would just note the family
but
said
they didn't say
changed.
when he changed.
Yeah.
If Americans are desensitized to violence, wouldn't that also apply to the people in the admin? I feel like that needs to happen. Is Kirk's funeral next Sunday, along with some new Epstein news jobs for us to move on from this? No, the administration doesn't give a fuck about Charlie Kirk either. They knew him. They loved him. They hung out with him and his family. Donald Trump was asked about Charlie Kirk the other day. He literally immediately started talking about the fucking ballroom he's building. What more do you need to see from Donald Trump to recognize that he does not give a shit about Charlie Kirk at all? Now, I know Republicans will hear me say this and say, how dare you, Hasan? Donald Trump loved Charlie Kirk. Everyone grieves differently. But it's pretty clear that he cares more about how he can utilize Charlie Kirk's death as a point of martyrdom so he can fucking prosecute political dissidents and doesn't give a shit about a friend he lost along the way. I will go so far as to say the only person that I've seen that is still a cynical grifter but truly felt human in that brief moment is Candace Owens. Outside of fucking Candace Owens, I ain't seen a single goddamn Republican even take a brief moment to be like, here are the amazing moments that I shared with Charlie Kirk, my friend. Okay? Candace Owens seemingly grieved Charlie Kirk harder than his wife did. It's crazy. Why do you think the U.S. is so easy to fool around with this leftist extremism hoax? Is it the Red Scare in history, or is it just plain idiocy? It's both. If the trend wouldn't be started in the U.S., we wouldn't talk about this in the UK and Europe either. But this is the beating heart of capitalism, the global domination over communism, wherever it might have been fomented, okay? America won the Cold War, and it was a very costly process. And America has been suffering since its victory over the USSR as well, because in the aftermath of the dissolution of the USSR, we reached an unprecedented level of super profits that are constantly expanding, and in the process of that expansion, that unlimited greed has created an environment where the working poor get shafted worse every single fucking year, okay? That's what happens when you have no safeguards. That's what happens when there's no counterbalance. So, of course, this country that successfully destroyed any alternative vision for an economic evolution is going to have an audience of receptive, brainless losers who will then turn around and say, no, it's not. The systems that we exist under are not the reason why we're suffering. It's the Guatemalan migrants. It's the transgenders. Okay, well, Donald Trump is doing unlimited warfare to all of those groups. Does it feel like things are more affordable for you? Wake up. At some point, you have to recognize that it's actually not the trans neighbors that you have that are that are destroying your lives, that are dominating your lives. It's not the Guatemalan immigrant that is just working a fucking factory to make sure that, you know, you can get cheap goods and commodities that you can consistently consume. That is actually the reason why you feel like you're never going to be able to own a home or retire at a fucking reasonable age. We exist under the complete domination of global capital, multinational corporations that are owned by people who have no loyalty whatsoever beyond expanding their profit margins when profit rates have a tendency to fall. They will constantly seek out extra profit margins everywhere they can. And the only malleable aspect in the commodity production side that can be squeezed is labor, whether that be seeking out new labor markets after you have dominated them through war and designing a system of unequal extraction from the global south, or whether it be gig economy jobs that are readily available for all so that you can always have a fucking cheap servant at your disposal through your fucking phone. One side of the equation, when an alternative vision is cast aside as dangerous, scary, violent, Americans find themselves in this drunken stupor as they sleepwalk towards fascism. Because there are other alternatives. When capitalism inevitably creates economic pressure, when capitalism inevitably creates these shocks within the system, fascism thrives because it's seen as a way to restore the hierarchical order by force. That's how it works. That's how it worked in Nazi Germany. That's how it worked in Mussolini's Italy. And that's how it's working here in the Western world. It's not just the United States of America. We say jump. Those European leaders say how high. They are completely and utterly servile in a way that is impossible to ignore now. Why is it impossible to ignore? They come after spending years and years shitting on Donald Trump, calling him an orange buffoon. They come and they genuflect. They come and they say, yes, sir. Yes, master. We will give you more tithing. We will do everything in our power to make you happy. So if you're wondering, if you're following from Europe and you're looking at all the chaos that's unfolding in America and you're saying, oh, well, at least we're not here. At least it's not happening here. You're looking into the future. You are looking into the future. For years and years, Europeans would come into my chat and be like, Hasan, you guys are such fucking fools. You're so silly. You're so stupid. We don't have this kind of shit in Europe. And I told you, I warned you, I said, what happens here today will happen in Europe tomorrow. And in the last decade of me constantly saying this, you saw the rise of AfD in Germany. You saw the rise of nationalists in France. You saw the rise of the Reform Party in the UK. Fascism is everywhere in liberal capitalist countries. And they are going to do the exact same thing that Donald Trump is doing right now when they have a little bit of the grip of power. Okay? When they control the levers of power, they are going to turn around and they're going to suppress dissent. They're going to violently and physically apprehend you. The only way out of this, the only other alternative out of this is socialism. The only other alternative out of this is to talk to your neighbors, organize in your communities, explain to them that it is actually global capital that is destroying their lives, because these people do not actually hide in cigar smoke filled back rooms where they fantasize about what to do with you, where they treat you as cattle. They do it in broad daylight. They do it at the World Economic Forum. They do it at Davos. They do it at the G10 summit. They do it at these summits where they get together and say, hey, we all have our class goals, right? We are aligned by the same interests. They do it in broad daylight. And the only reason why they can do it in broad daylight is because so many of your neighbors, so many of your friends have been deluded into thinking that the socialist alternative is dangerous. The socialist alternative is scary. That, oh my God, there could never be a better system than the one that we exist under. And the other system is scary and dangerous and violent. I've been warning about this moment in American history for the past decade, every single fucking day. Every single day. They won't even let you in on a crumb of the profits, the super profits that they are generating in the heart of Western Empire. And they won't even do it as riot tax. They won't even offer you modest social democratic reforms because they know they can get away with it. They know that your attention will go elsewhere, okay? Today, you tap in. Today, you tune in, but tomorrow, you'll forget about it because they know that even if you do pay attention to it, you will inevitably feel discouraged. You will inevitably feel like change is an impossibility. And therefore, you'll seek out nihilism. You'll seek out appropriate targets that you can go after. You'll seek out areas that seemingly are more malleable, people that are more accessible, like your least favorite Twitch streamer or your least favorite fucking content creator, this or that. These systems are seemingly impenetrable. And that's why I understand why people are so malleable and why people fight amongst themselves, because they feel like maybe it's easier. Maybe it's easier to just like have the government pack up vulnerable populations that I've been taught to fear. Okay? That's it. There is no difference between a black person and a white person. There's no difference between an undocumented migrant and a documented migrant and a natural-born U.S. citizen. No difference whatsoever. Not even a little bit. Everyone has unlimited potential. It is up to us to unlock said potential. But people, unfortunately, are held behind through systems of inequality. And the people that refuse to address those systemic, to address the systemic inequality would rather have you servile, would rather have you deluded, would rather have you angry and fighting amongst yourselves. It's not different from when Lenin presented this reality, and it's not different right now. I'm not saying something that is new, okay? This has always been the design. The only difference now is that capitalism is completely won. It has dominated our lives. It has dominated our existence. We take it for granted. We think it's a part of the human nature. We can't even envision an alternative reality where we say, hey, can people get a little bit more in return for their productive labor, for their output? No, that's socialism. That's terrifying. That's bad. Why do you want to reward lazy people? They're not working hard. And this is not a CEO saying this. This is not the owner of a mega corporation saying this. This is Americans who work that are saying this. Think about that. They've been so brainwashed and so fucking brain broken that they turn around and say, people just like me, working an honest job, people that look exactly like me, people that have the exact same class interests, they're bad people. They're the real enemies, actually, and not capital, not capitalism. God forbid. And they fucking toil away. And they get their little treats on the sideline so that, you know, for a brief moment, they feel a sense of autonomy, a sense of purpose in their lives, a sense of humanity in their lives, and they just move along with their day. And change seems impossible. Change in the appropriate direction seems impossible. But as material conditions worsen, day in and day out, people get resentful. People get angry. And there's one party that takes that anger, that captures that attention, that captures all of that enmity and redirects it back to targets that are vulnerable, targets that are easily dismissed. Because most people don't care. Most people are too self-invested. Most people don't have time to care. Most people are too busy trying to make rent. Most people are too busy trying to afford their fucking groceries. Most people are too busy with the fear that if they, God forbid, something terrible were to happen, they're going to be saddled with medical debt. So in that process, they get more and more angry. And then when someone comes along and says, you're angry, and it's because the groceries are too expensive, right? But you know who's made the groceries too expensive? The fucking Guatemalan dude that is slaving away in 100-degree heat to make sure that you can have tomatoes. That's the reason why your groceries are expensive. And when we deport that guy, instead of offering him the dignity that he deserves, that everyone deserves, but he deserves more than many others, okay, for toiling the fucking land for a goddamn decade, when we kick that guy out of this country, then groceries are somehow magically going to be less costly. It's bullshit. But people believe it. And the reason why people believe it is because there is no one out there in a position of prominence that turns around and says, how the fuck is that going to help?